Great lineup today. We've got Larry Johnson, former CIA. We've got Trita Parsi. We've got Professor Robert Pape, who is going viral at the moment in terms of his thesis about the escalation trap. And then we've got former British Ambassador Ian Proud. Lots to speak about. A huge amount of interaction and engagement on the Strait of Hormuz. We're going to be breaking that down with all of the guests. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Lots to speak about. Let's get right into it. Larry, how are you?
You know, I thought you saved the best for last. You got me leading off. No, actually, that's a good one. I love Ian. Ian's a good man.
Yeah, he's great. He's great. How are you doing, though?
Good. Yeah, and I admire the work of Trita and Professor Pape.
Well, you're the top of the. For me, you're the top of the mountain of all of them, and this is why we got you first, Larry.
Yeah, there you go. An aspiring politician you are.
Well, I don't know about that, but I appreciate you as always, Larry. Larry, we need to get into it. There's a lot going on in the Strait of Hormuz. A lot of it's hard to get down to what's really going on. There's a lot of claims being made by Iran. There's a lot of claims being made by the US. If you can give an overview of what's happening, then I've got a few questions about, for example, the US vessels being hit today. There was some Iranian tankers that were hit, so we'll get into that. But what's your overarching thoughts on what's happening over the last 2 days? We thought the UAE was attacking, then we found out the United States was attacking. What's your kind of overview of what's happening?
Yeah, no, the United States is going to renew the war with Iran. That's for certain. There's no negotiated settlement. There's just it's an impossibility. I wrote a piece last night at sonar21.com just saying that it's a gulf too wide to bridge. The United States, it's not just Trump. Listen to what the Marco Rubio says, Pete Hegseth says, John Ratcliffe says, the pundits that populate Fox News, CNN, MSNB Now, or MS Now. You rarely hear nobody who will defend Iran is allowed on air, number one. Number two, Iran is portrayed as this irredeemable terrorist authoritarian state who are they're hanging homosexuals every other day from a crane with a wire. So conjuring up images of what Adolf Hitler did to the coup plotters that tried to kill him in July of 1944. That Iran is the number one sponsor of terrorism, that it is this great threat to its neighbors. They build this whole narrative, and it's like describing them as a child rapist, and therefore they want you to have a relationship with them. And you're going, what? We can't be around those people. They're terrible. So the United States, just by how it frames Iran as a country, as a people, has set up a narrative that makes it impossible to reach any kind of peace deal. Then on top of that, the delusional bullshit that is rampant in the United States, where they're convinced, we got Iran's on the ropes. Iran, man, they're hanging on by their fingernails. They're going to go down any minute now. They are the economy's crumbling. Soldiers aren't getting paid. The people are unhappy. And the currency. The currency is they might as well be using sand. And ignoring the fact that what's actually going on is Iran's economic relationships with with Iran, with Russia, China have grown, and as a result of that with China, it's also grown with Pakistan. Pakistan has now opened 7, not 6, 7 different transport lines into Iran, plus is allowing Iran to use its deep water port, which I'm told is the largest deep water port in the world. Mm-hmm. Instead of being isolated, Iran actually is less isolated now than it was a year ago. And whatever efforts are constraining exports out of the Persian Gulf, the reality is that it has unfettered access through Turkmenistan, through Pakistan, and through the Caspian Sea up into Russia. So right there, you have the United States convincing itself that, oh, the Iranian economy is so weak, it's not going to survive. And then the leadership, it's divided. And we talked about this last time I was with you.
Yeah.
It's just the opposite, that the Iranian leadership is probably more united than it ever has been in the history of Iran, simply because the men occupying the top leadership positions all fought in the Iraq-Iran war, all are veterans of that war, all fought as part of the IRGC. So it's not like, well, one was with the Artesh, the regular army, and one was with the IRGC. No, they all fought with the IRGC. So there's this notion that there's a split between hardliners and moderates, so-called moderates. It's just it's a invention, a fantasy invented in the West. And then the final point is that Iran is so oppressive, it's so religiously oppressive that people are yearning to breathe free, not ignoring completely the actual changes that have taken place in Iran over the years. So a lot of the suffering that has occurred in Iran was because of Western sanctions, and they're now breaking free of that, and thanks to China and to Russia.
So let's talk about some of those things. I saw a report that basically said that even the train or the rail route from Iran to China has basically become 3 times larger. So Iran's able to get the oil out. Iran's able to get their goods out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that adds to your point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It is. The U.S. model is predicated on the assumption that Iran is isolated, has nowhere else to turn, and it will crumble from within. Sorry, ain't going to happen. So once you adjust yourself to that, you say, well, what does Iran want? How flexible is Iran? Well, Iran's not really very flexible right now. In fact, they're pretty insistent on, you're going to lift all sanctions, you're going to unfreeze our assets, you're going to stop Israel from killing Palestinians and attacking Hezbollah and Lebanese. Stop that now. And recognize we've got complete control of the state of Hormuz along with Oman. And so we're going to be charging people a fee to come in and out of the Gulf. And those that have participated in this war on your side that have damaged our people, they're going to have to pay a fee. And with respect to our enrichment of nuclear material, none of your damn business. We are a sovereign nation. We signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty. We abide by the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And you don't have any right to come in and tell us, watch what we do. Not at all. Well, none of that's going to be acceptable to the West. So that's why I say this war will restart. And what will be exposed is the one country that does not have the resources to sustain it will be the United States, not Iran. And people go, what? Are you crazy? Well, number one, look at if the United States continues to try to put destroyers into the Strait of Hormuz, one of these days, one of them is going to get sunk. But those destroyers, when they're in there, they have about 90 missiles on board the ship that are in what are called vertical launch systems. They're in tubes. So think of it like tubes that are put into the deck of the ship. Once those destroyers fire the missiles out of that tube, they can't reload it on their own. It's not like they take 10 sailors carrying a rocket and then open the hatch and drop it in. No, it's not like that at all. They have to sail out, go back to a friendly port to have them loaded on board with a crane. So that's what I mean. The United States doesn't have the ability to sustain a ship in there in combat because it's going to run out of ammunition and it's going to have to withdraw. But the other point here is the United States does not have unlimited supplies of Tomahawk missiles and JASSMs. And every day that it fires some into Iran is one less day that they could ever fire them at China, which ultimately the United States is saying that China is the big threat, big worry, not little Iran. So that's why I say the United States is going to find itself unable on those fronts to sustain operations. And then there's the whole question of when will the world wake up and realize how damaging the last 70 days have been to the global economy? Because it's one of those things, I'm beginning to sound like I'm obsessed with this, but I am obsessed with it because the numbers are so extraordinary. When you look at that, we were told that the oil coming out of the Persian Gulf was 20%. I just got another source that said, no, it's 32%. So what the world had on February 28th, it was on February 28th. Think of it this way. You got a bathtub, and this bathtub is, you got the faucet on, and water is constantly flowing out into it. And then out of that bathtub, there's a drainage spout that, takes it out to, let's say, a bird feeder or a bunch of bird feeders. Well, on February 28th, you turned off the water flow. So there was still water in the tub. And that water in the tub keeps going lower and lower and lower and lower. And that's what has happened since February 28th up until May 1st. That oil that was already out there, it was already in the tub. It created the illusion, we got plenty of oil. But now all of a sudden, it's down and the tub is empty, or it's close to empty. You can't turn the faucet back on. So even if they turn the faucet back on tomorrow, the flow of oil, it would be 6 to 8 weeks before the oil would actually get to destination, because you got to load it onto a ship. Then that ship has to sail to the destination, and it's traveling at about 12 miles per hour. Covering, 200, 240 miles a day, and we got a 6,000 mile trip. Takes a while. So we've lost 1/3 of the world oil. We've lost 20% of LNG, and that's primarily out of Qatar. Qatar is the second largest producer, it's probably the third largest after Russia and the United States. Then you get urea, that's for production of fertilizer. That's 36% of the world's supply. Sulfur, 44% of the global supply of sulfur was coming out of the Persian Gulf. Yeah. And you're saying, so what? Well, that sulfur is used for fertilizer production. It's used for metal ore processing, like copper, nickel, cobalt leaching. It's used for refining petroleum. It's used for cleaning semiconductor wafers. So it's critical economically. And then helium. Who knew that Qatar as well was the second largest producer of helium in the world, 33%. So when you've got significant shortages that range from 20 to 36% to 44%, all of a sudden that's cut off. As that production then grinds to a halt, or the products that you used to expect they'd produce 10, now they're only producing 2. The price is going to go through the roof in some areas, and the economic contraction. People thought they had steady jobs are going to find out they're without a job. So that's why I say this whole cascading effect of the economy on the world. And the world right now, particularly the major financial analysts, they are pretending like this is a carnival. This is no big deal. It's just a temporary disruption. Go on, eat, drink, and be merry. Now, this is like the head waiter on the Titanic after the iceberg is hit, and he's telling everybody, "Hey, sit back down in your chairs. We're going to have dessert here." Yeah.
It's like that meme where everything's on fire and the guy's having his cereal.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what's it called? Police Story. Frank Drebin, the detective. He's standing there in front of the buildings burning. Missiles are going off. There are explosions. There's screaming. There's all sorts of chaos. And he said, "Move along. Nothing to see here. Move along."
Yeah, exactly. I remember that. So So coming back to it, Larry. So we know how bad the situation is. Totally agree with you. And things are just getting worse while Trump is enriching himself. That's an important
Yeah,
point to know.
yeah.
But I guess the question here is, looking at it, obviously Trump doesn't seem to care, and he doesn't mind because it's like a wealth transfer. He doesn't mind the poor becoming poorer because what you do is you essentially it's basically one of the biggest wealth transfers probably since COVID, and so this is why he doesn't care, and the blockade probably will continue for a while until they need to get kinetic. But I guess last night or 2 days ago, it did seem like things were getting kinetic. What's your kind of view on what's actually happening on the Strait? Why was Project Freedom? Okay, let's go with each element at a time. So Project Freedom starts. He fails to succeed in it. Apparently, the Saudis and the Kuwaitis then say you're not allowed to use our airspace.
Right.
And the reason they said it is because they're not happy with the United States of America for minimizing the attack on the UAE. Remember, they said it doesn't meet the threshold. And so it was a way of pressuring Trump, using leverage. Apparently, Trump got on the phone with MBS. There was some kind of agreement. It seems like that agreement is that he agreed to attack Iran, but then they opened the airspace again. What's your kind of perspective on what happened there?
Yeah, I'm not sure the airbase is open. I mean, that's the story they're putting out. But I was just told by somebody who spoke with a senior member of Pakistan's intelligence service, ISI. We're talking somebody who's in a senior rank. That the Saudis and Qataris are headed towards, cutting their ties with the West and solidifying their ties with Russia and China. During Arachi's visit to China this last week, you heard I'm having trouble with the name, the foreign minister of China said he was talking, Wang Yi said they're going to be looking at the security architecture of the Gulf. Well, what makes that important is in the previous week when Arachi was meeting with Putin in St. Petersburg, Putin said the same thing. So that tells me right away Russia and China are cooperating closely in restructuring the security architecture of the region. Now, what does that mean? The previous architecture was based upon U.S. support for the Gulf Arabs and planting of U.S. military bases for the express purpose of attacking Iran. And those Gulf Arabs were asked to buy U.S. debt to help fund all the U.S. war expenditures. They were asked to buy U.S. weapons on the promise that, hey, we got your back. They come after those nasty Iranians come after you. We got you. We'll protect you. So how'd that work out? Well, it turned out that when the shooting actually started, the United States wanted to use their bases, but wasn't doing anything to really help protect them. And it turned out the United States air defense systems were inadequate, to put it bluntly, completely incompetent. It didn't stop the destruction of $2 billion radar arrays that were critical for early warning and other things. So this architecture, this structure has fallen to the ground, and now the pieces need to be picked back up. The two countries out of Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi, Qatar, Arab Emirates, or six, and let's add Oman. The two most critical countries economically in that region are Saudi Arabia and Qatar. And Qatar, in fact, in some aspects, is more important than Saudi Arabia because it produces more of the LNG than Saudi Arabia does. It produces more of the helium than anybody does, other than the United States, and it's right in there with oil and sulfur and urea. So the point of this is Russia and China now are going to, I think, construct a new architecture. Security guarantees will be made to Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and what this what this general in ISI told my friend was that Saudis are going to close down the bases to the United States permanently, and the same with Al Udeid. Now, I'll believe that when I see it, but if Qatar follows through with that, that will be a clear, visible sign that the earth has shaken, that we are into a new era, and that will, with that relationship and alignment, then you're going to see the dramatic easing of tensions between Saudi Arabia, Qatar on the one hand, and Iran on the other.
Well, that'll be the move towards the end of the US empire, right? Because
Yeah,
essentially you're not having much impact in the Middle East other than possibly the UAE.
exactly right. And that I don't think the Trump administration fully appreciates. Maybe they do, but this is one of the movements that's afoot.
Well, we shall see. I know some people theorize that, but I still doubt that happening. I don't think they have the ability to remove the American control from their countries. But let's see what happens on that.
Well, let's point out that the U.S. has already had been removed from Bahrain.
Yeah.
I mean, and several of the bases, at least 8 of the bases, my understanding, are uninhabitable.
Yeah.
So whether or not the
15
United States chose to be removed, that's a whole other thing. But they've been removed, and they can't go back into those bases right now, and may not ever be able to go back. So that's one as opposed to a de jure leaving. This is a de facto leaving.
Yeah. Great point. Apparently, it's like 15 bases that were hit. This was a report by
correct.
the Washington Post, significantly. And as you mentioned, the Fifth Fleet is now in. It's close to you now, Larry. It's in Florida, so it's moved from Bahrain to Florida. But coming back to the UAE were hit. You came on the show. You said there was going to be a response on the 7th. We did see a response on the 7th. It wasn't by the UAE. It was by the United States of America. What happened in terms of that response? US claims that they were trying to bring their vessel through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran attacked. They preemptively start hitting Bandar Abbas, Keshem, and I forgot the third place, but they hit those 3 different, Sirik, I think it was. They hit those 3 different locations. What's your kind of perspective of, and then they said it's part of the reason is because of that and part of it is because of the UAE. So what was your perspective on what actually happened there?
Yeah, no, in fact, there had been contact and exchange of fire between the U.S. and Iran on the 5th and on the 6th. It just didn't get reported. So I learned that yesterday, that this had been going on for a while. So this is just the prelude to the full reignition of the war on the part with the United States leading the way. But right now it's on hold because Trump doesn't want to create a reason for the summit with China to be canceled, because the Chinese have apparently sent some pretty strong signals that if you go back and attack Iran, you're not coming to Beijing. So I think this, we're going to be in, let's call it low boil. So each side is going to be shooting at the other, but not with an intensity. Now, that doesn't mean that things can't get accidentally out of hand, where the United States scores a direct hit on a U.S. destroyer and the destroyer explodes and sailors are killed. That would then escalate things pretty quickly. But otherwise, I think Trump's going to hold off until he returns from China. That's assuming he goes. If he doesn't go, if the trip's canceled, then the United States is going to go back to full engagement with Iran. The ceasefire will be over.
Isn't this in US's interest, though? This, you're talking about this being a kinetic engagement on the 5th, 6th, and 7th, and today as well. Isn't this in the US interest? And what I mean by that is if the war is more like how it was previously, Iran's kind of open to hitting Israel, the bases, the Gulf states, various other things. When it comes to the naval kind of engagement, obviously the US Navy is quite strong, and so isn't that what the US would want, is some kind of naval engagement as opposed to like a holistic one?
Yeah, how can the Navy engage? Walk me through that.
Well, we're seeing the destroyers shooting at Iranian, basically at Iranian fast boats. You've got the shooting of the vessels. You're keeping the engagement right within the sea. Obviously, U.S. is killing civilians. We saw 5 civilians get killed today.
Right.
2 naval boats being hit, but the engagement is localized there. Whereas if the engagement wasn't, Iran could have hit those American destroyers and those assets from, for example, from locations within mainland Iran.
Well, no, they can hit them now. Iran's just choosing not to
That's my
escalate
point.
it beyond that. And remember, every shot that destroyer fires, that's one. It can't replace that. It will have to disengage, sail out of the Gulf to go reload. So that's what I mean. It has very short staying power. During World War II, when the destroyers and battleships would get into an engagement, and they would be firing, and they'd run out of ammunition. They had what were called oilers. So these ships would come. They were just basically resupply ships. They would come alongside, ammunition, food, fuel, whatever the battleship or destroyer needed, it was provided by that order. They don't have that anymore. They got rid of those 25, 30 years ago. So now what they have to do is when they run short, they can't stay in the fight. They have to bail out. So that's number one. So the U.S. doesn't have any staying power. 2, it's keeping most of its naval assets 200 miles offshore. But when and if Iran decides to fully engage them with underwater drones, on-surface drones, mini submarines, aerial drones, and then coastal defense cruise missiles, they have used a few of those, and some short-range ballistic missiles, they're going to take out these ships. And the United States can't do a damn thing about it, other than to pull its ships out. So, yeah, this is just a gross. I hear these people like John Bolton, my former neighbor.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah. He lived 3 blocks up the street from where I did in Bethesda.
That wasn't a pleasant sight.
I missed my chance one snowy morning. He was out shoveling snow. If I would have run him over, the world might have been a better place.
We don't condone violence, but
Yeah.
In a hypothetical dream multiverse scenario, this would have been.
That
Yeah,
was just my car slipping in the snow at the wrong time and having an unfortunate accident.
yeah. I mean, it is slippery.
But no, he thinks you can just sell a battleship in there, start firing off, or a destroyer start firing at the shore, and that'll open a strait. It doesn't work that way. And the fact that he doesn't understand that is part of the problem, because as long as Iran retains short-range and intermediate-range ballistic missiles that can hit any ship that comes through the Strait of Hormuz, then no insurance company in the world is going to insure those vessels, which means they're not going to go anywhere. So that's why this, quote, opening the Strait of Hormuz is just a matter of sending some U.S. naval ships through. If that's what these morons believe, well, they're in for a rude awakening, because that ain't going to happen. And so that's where, Iran, yesterday sort of preempted, or in response to the notion of freedom, Project Freedom, even though it was canceled temporarily, is that they've now set out a paper and a policy for how they're going to collect fees and who has to fill out what paperwork and where the paperwork is filled out, etc. What I find hilarious is that, some scamsters had already started contacting shipping lines that had ships that wanted to go through the Strait of Hormuz and selling them what they thought was the legitimate paperwork.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw the Indian one. They were like, "Sir, don't shoot."
Yeah. So,
Yeah, that was hilarious to say the least. But today we saw, it was, I believe, a few hours before we joined on, maybe a few more hours than that. And it was the United States of America hit 2 Iranian vessels, killing 5 civilians. What's your thoughts on that? And what I mean by this is, Iran has control of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has fired at vessels, yet there's been no casualties. What that seems to suggest, and I want your thoughts on this or your information and knowledge on this, what that seems to suggest is when Iran's targeting these vessels, is targeted in specific places. It could be the engine, it could be various other places where there isn't civilian casualties. And yet the US today, once again, target vessels of innocent sailors and 5 are killed. I mean,
Yeah.
what is going on?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the U.S. does what the U.S. always does. It kills civilians. It has no regard for difference between civilian and combatant, unfortunately. So I said that's one of those acts that will add to pressure on Iran to then step up its retaliation. So, I think we're in sort of a gradual escalatory spiral up, and that's where ultimately this is going to be full on fire, as we saw during the first 4 weeks of the war.
I guess one of the piece of like concerns I have in my mind, and I want your thoughts on this genuinely, is what the UAE. The UAE, apparently Iran's been sending missiles. Now these could be false flags. We did see some visuals today of Dubai International Airport, smoke plumes coming from Dubai International Airport. But the attacks from Iran haven't been significant, and the resulting damage to Dubai hasn't been significant as well.
Right.
Now, there's
Yeah,
and what is the reason for that? Is it that Iran's not targeting them as hard enough? Is it that Dubai's defense is good? I am aware that the British are there helping defend them. They're defending them themselves. I believe the French may be there as well. I was hearing reports, possibly, I haven't verified this, that the Egyptians are there as well. What is going on in this kind of kinetic perspective? That bit is the bit of what's always been, not completely clarified.
Yeah, no, Iran is being careful not to be the one that breaks the ceasefire. So they're honoring that, and they're doing that in part because of their relationship with China, with Russia, with Pakistan, where they want to be able to take the high road to say, we're not the ones who violated the ceasefire. That was the West. So, they can excuse that, okay, the death of these 5, that was an unfortunate mistake, and maybe that's what the United States told them. But if there are more of these, then I think you're going to see Iran shift from trying to support the ceasefire to saying, okay, the ceasefire's done, we're back at war.
But will Iran respond? Because let's be clear, the day before, I think it was yesterday, Bandar Abbas was hit, Keshem was hit, and Sariq was hit. This is Iran. So, I mean, there needs to be a response, right? You can't be like, oh, we're just hitting your vessels in the Strait.
Well, there will be a response, I'm sure, eventually. I don't know why they didn't respond immediately. I guess it didn't cause significant damage. Apparently, it didn't kill a large number of civilians. I mean, killing 5 is regretful, but that's different from killing 168 schoolgirls. So, but Iran's already demonstrated it's got the ability to respond within minutes. There's something going on diplomatically behind the scenes with Russia and China that involves restructuring the security architecture of the Gulf. And I think to that extent, perhaps Russia and China have asked Iran to exercise more patience in responding. And so that I would not draw the lesson from this that, the United States can hit these targets and Iran's afraid to respond. No, I don't think that's it at all.
Yeah, and from my understanding, those 3 hits on those specific islands, there was 0 casualties. The casualties came today, which was separate to that, which was actually in the Strait of Hormuz, where the United States of America targeted and killed actual civilians on the vessels.
Right.
So that adds to the point that you're saying that there wasn't any casualties and probably was minimal damage, although we're unaware of the actual damage that there was. You believe there's going to be escalation. The meeting in China, that's happening on the 14th, I believe, which is in 6 days. What is going to be the parameters of that meeting? Do you think Xi goes in and talks about de-escalation, or what happens? We know originally Trump's plan for that meeting likely is he was going to say, I defeated Venezuela, I defeated Iran, we control the cards, and it's kind of the meetings basically now totally opposite of that. Complete failure, as you mentioned, the weakening of the empire. What do you think is going to be discussed or said or spoke about in that meeting?
Yeah, I'm still skeptical that the meeting will come off. because I think at some point China will decide it's not worth its time. But if it does come off, China's going to make the point: we're done with your sanctions. You're going to stop sanctioning our companies, our people. This ends now, or there's no relationship going forward. You choose. The the face of the world is changed dramatically, economically, in the last 25 years, and I was sort of shocked to discover this. That 25 years ago, there were the top 10 banks in the world. The number one bank was Deutsche Bank in Germany, and then BNP Paribas in France. Then you had 5 Japanese banks. So between Germany, France, and Japan, they controlled 70% of the top 10 banks, 7 out of 10. The United States, I think, had one, J.P. Morgan Chase. So that was 25 years ago. Today, the top 4 banks are all Chinese, followed by 2 U.S. banks, Bank of America, J.P. Morgan. You only have 1 Japanese bank in that mix now. Germany, no longer in that mix, out. You do have HSBC, which is still based in Britain. Now, but my point in this is, in the past, the United States thought it could exercise economic control because countries like China were dependent on the U.S. dollar, and therefore they had to balance scrape to whatever we told them to do. No longer the case. In fact, China, by virtue of dominating the top 4 positions in the international banking sphere, they are aggregating to themselves power that once was the exclusive purview of the United States. And so, that's going to be on the discussion list. China's going to make it very clear that it's going to continue to build up SIPS, the cross-border interbank payment system, that is replacing SWIFT.
Yeah.
Because it's a digital. It's a SWIFT. SWIFT is ironically named because it's anything but swift or quick. It is actually pretty pedestrianly slow. It's like snail mail. It's emails for banks, but it gets lost in the spam folder, or there's a variety of drawbacks to it. Yeah, China now is the leader. There's a podcast on a Telegram channel called East Calling, and one of the co-hosts of that is a guy named Ryan out of Austin, Texas. Well, he's in China this weekend. He just posted a video of him taking a autopiloted taxi, air taxi. You get into it, and this thing is basically a big-ass drone, rotor with the rotors all around it. It took off, flew him to the destination, landed, gets out. Do we have anything like that in the United States? Hell no. I mean, the Chinese are so far advanced beyond us on so many areas of technology, and yet we keep sitting back saying, "Oh, the United States, we're so great, we're so powerful. Oh, look at us," And man, we've lost our fastball, is what has happened. And so while we're doing that, the rest of the Chinese, China in particular, is running circles around us. So what this conflict that's taking the war right now with Iran, it's changed in character because China and Russia are now fully engaged. There are things going on behind the scenes that we don't understand, but it's not a negotiated settlement because there are too many things the United States still believes and is committed to that will make it impossible for the U.S. to agree to or accept an arrangement with Iran. It's only going to be when the United States is basically defeated, forced to admit it does not have the military power nor the economic power to compel Iran to surrender.
And you're so right about China. China's advancements, largely speaking, remember before the Chinese were infiltrating the United States of America, stealing US secrets and retrofitting them back and basically working out what they were. The major advancements have been because overarchingly, the problem with the US has always been, well, previously they didn't have this problem. It was a free market. You would come up with ideas, I would, we'd compete, and the best idea would prevail. Now you got in the US where corporations run the country. The corporations control the country as opposed to China, where China controls the corporations. And so for that reason, you have monopolization. One company just monopolizes the market in every single industry. You don't see that development. You don't see the technological development, and then you don't see the innovation. And I think that's the major problem. There's been a huge setback in America because now corporations are there just to profiteer and scam people essentially, as opposed to really developing great products. So I'm totally in agreement with what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a new world, and we've yet to catch up to it. You know, there's I'm increasingly this nonsense has been, you know, spread around by people like Tom Luongo about, oh, City of London, Rothschilds, they're controlling the world. They're not in the top 10 of the banks, okay? So all their great control, the world's moved on, and the UK is becoming increasingly irrelevant to world events. It's not. I don't mean to insult your home country here.
No, I agree with you. I'm vehemently against the direction the United Kingdom has gone through. Terrible decision after terrible decision. You saw the decision in terms of Brexit. You saw the decision in terms of COVID. Then the support of the Ukraine-Russia war. Then the support of Israel in the Israel-Gaza war. And then you've seen this current support of Israel and the US in this Iran war, although it's done covertly. It's a complete destruction of our society. The complete separation of the working class who are struggling even more while the rich benefit. So UK has completely just been decimated itself in every single avenue.
Yeah, yeah, and when you look at the fact that this decline started, let's say 112 years ago with World War One. Once the United Kingdom inserted itself into World War One and lost a generation of men.
Yeah.
And then what followed in World War II was sort of the final coup de grace of breaking up the end of the British colonial empire, at least with India breaking away and Pakistan coming into existence. The world changed, and then with that, the initial humiliation of conspiring with Israel to take the Suez Canal from Egypt, and the United States stopping it. And that was the moment when the UK finally realized we're no longer in the driver's seat. And you think about it, that here you'd gone from, the UK had been one of the leading industrial powers in the world, not just in Europe, in the world. It had been, and now obviously benefiting from its colonial domination of so many key resource-rich countries in Africa and Asia in particular. But where it once was a center for the cutting edge of scientific discovery. The fellow named Isaac Newton, I guess, he made quite a name for himself.
He was a legend.
All of a sudden, England, the UK is a backwater on scientific, and who's winning the Nobel prizes for science and physics, etc. So we've now watched. And it hasn't been just overnight. It's been just one thing after another, slow bleeding out. But now the UK's basically bled white. That same process is underway here in the United States.
True.
The United States too it's sapping itself of its strength. It used to be the center for industrial innovation. Now I'd argue that's shifted to China. And China is rapidly becoming the leader in areas that the United States once dominated. And in fact, it used to be a thing for the Chinese elite wanted to send their kids to school in the United States. Now what's happening is kids that have been educated in the United States, when they come back to China, they're actually having trouble getting a job. Preference is going to kids that went to the top universities in China. And when you look at the world the top ranked like 20 engineering schools. China's got like 8 of the top 10. In the United States, MIT is the highest, and it shows up as number 13. So, that's why I said this world is changing, and the ability of the United States to force, to dominate it, to control it, to dictate what others do, it's slipping away. And so that'll be one of the issues that'll be, at least they're behind the discussions between Trump and Xi.
No doubt, no doubt. And just to add to what you're saying, basically after World War II, you saw the significant loss of life. You saw the destruction of Britain. And so that's why, like, basically my grandparents, there's the reason they came to the United Kingdom in the 60s was because, basically the early 60s was because of this rebuilding of the UK, which after the devastation, the steel factories, the industry, the manufacturing, all of these things were basically completely not workable. But now what you've seen over time is these entire industry is shut down. And what is the UK known for? It's basically insurance. That's basically what UK imports is, just basically insurance. So we've completely just destroyed our entire manufacturing base. And we've seen the same with the US recently. It happened later, but we've seen the same thing with the US. And this is why these other countries are benefiting significantly. And so with Trump saying that he wants to improve the manufacturing industry, he can say that, but then he's not doing real tangible things in order to do so. I was actually supportive of the tariffs if they were done properly, if they were done to build actual manufacturing in the United States of America, but they never were. That was always a facade. Really what happened with the tariffs was, again, destroying small businesses, destroying medium-sized businesses, then beaten up by the corporations. And again, you have a monopolization once again. So every single decision that's made is always for the larger corporations when it comes to Donald Trump. But coming back to the war with Iran, specifically on the Strait of Hormuz, you mentioned that things could possibly escalate, although all the sides don't want it. Why is that engagement even happening? Like, why is it that the US is even engaging with Iranian vessels? We saw up until this week, vessels were coming out of the strait very easily. I did a Substack where I believe 250 vessels had easily gone out. Iran had made $5 billion. Why this kind of extra after Project Freedom? He abandoned it, but then there's been this engagement. What's the reason for it? What's the logic behind it?
Well, it is. I was going to look up the live tanker map, and you got to go through the original sources to sort through the propaganda, what is being put out as the claim that there's all this attacks, when in fact it doesn't look to be quite as bad as it's being portrayed. So let's see. It shows right now 171 ships are locked away up into the north part. 13 ships right now in the Strait of Hormuz, where it's going through the channel that Iran controls. And then you got a bunch down south. So, this is a case where there's a lot of propaganda being put out that to make it appear that, in favor of the United States. Oh yeah, we're beating them, we're smoking them. And Iran is, keeping patient and continuing to move ships in and out. And, it's interesting that what the U.S. is blowing up are unloaded oil tankers. Okay. And yet everything the United States is doing right now is actually exacerbating the oil shortage in the world. And so it's a matter of time before this whole thing comes crashing down on top of the U.S.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. What's your kind of information on the Brits, the French, possibly the Egyptians defending the UAE and having resources there to basically, defend them?
What are they going to do? The Brits are going to send them an aircraft carrier that doesn't work? Who are they going to engage? What highly sophisticated air defense system have the French or Brits developed, or the Egyptians? None. They're going to have to rely upon a system maybe provided by the United States that is short of missiles. This is what I'd call mindless political posturing. It doesn't really add up to anything because they bring Britain and France bring no credible military force to this battle.
And I'm in total agreement with you. I think China and Russia have essentially told Iran to lay off the gas and not basically respond to provocations by the United States of America. At what point can Iran kind of ignore that and start doing something? And the reason I'm saying that is I'm mindful of what's happening in Lebanon. We know Hezbollah is dominating on the ground. There's no doubt about that. But the Israelis are continuing to bomb. They bombed Beirut center just a couple of days ago. They bombed basically other villages. They bombed a Christian village very recently. Now, they were doing that during the war, so I don't... Iran attacking probably wouldn't change that, but at least they'd be defending themselves a little bit. What's your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, look, the one demand that Iran has continued to make as part of hey, if we're going to have a negotiated settlement to the war, here's another demand. The attacks on the Palestinians, the Lebanese, and Hezbollah have got to stop, period. Now, only the United States can do that. And but that means Trump is going to have to buck a lot of very passionate Zionist support. Will he do that? I don't think so. It needs to be done, but I don't see him doing that. So that means, the war will continue. Because they're refusing to entertain any kind of suggestion like that for de-escalation.
Yeah.
It's going to continue.
I'm in agreement with you. I think this is going to continue. I just agree with your analysis completely. This is a slow escalation back to a kinetic war. But the problem here is you can have a kinetic war, and you mentioned this many times when you've come on here, but it's going to end up being more of the same. What do you achieve by doing that? Like, what's the goal?
Yeah, there's where the real cost comes to the United States, because number one, these destroyers, as I mentioned, I think I did. I've done so many podcasts today. If I start repeating myself, just say, "Hey, old man, you've already told that story."
It's good. It's good to repeat. It's good to repeat for the guy.
But when you look at the destroyers, they have vertical launch systems in the decks, and so when they fire a missile out of that, then it's not easily reloaded. They have to pull out and go to another port to get reloaded. So they're not able to sustain fire against Iran. So if Iran could keep them engaged for an entire day, and all of a sudden that destroyer would be out of ammunition, and then what? Okay, so that would be a tacit defeat. So far, Iran hasn't done that, but I'm sitting here looking at the live map, and there's no U.S. military ship anywhere right there in the immediate area of the Strait of Hormuz. So that, they keep claiming that they're there, but they're not.
Okay, so last question before we let you go, Larry.
Yeah.
Pedestrian came out with a statement about a couple of hours ago, an hour before we started, I believe, and he said, he said that the U.S. are reporting that, I think it was the Washington Post, are reporting that Iran has been able to recover 70% of its missile capability. And he said that's false. We've got 125% of our missile capability. Yeah. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, look, Iran, in the aftermath of the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003, recognized that it could no longer have a conventional above-ground defense. And so they set about building these underground cities that are specifically designed to withstand an atomic bomb. Okay? So that even if the United States talks about, well, we launched these bunker busters, and oh, please. The reality is Iran's key ballistic missile production facilities, as well as their storage facilities and launch pads, they're all there underground. So the United States claims that they thought a lot of what the United States destroyed in the early days of this war were blow-up dummies provided courtesy of China. They were decoys. And the United States destroyed decoys but didn't actually destroy anything that curtailed Iranian capabilities.
Larry, thank you so much for joining us. Always appreciate you coming on. Everybody should be following Larry Johnson on his website, Sonar21. In addition to that, your Substack, Sonar21, you said you had a great article came out a couple of days ago. Everyone should be reading that article. And also, we'll get everyone to follow your X as well, Larry. Thank you so much for taking your time out to join us.
Hey, Suleiman, always a pleasure. Behave yourself, young man.
I try my best, Larry. I try my best. Appreciate
All right.
you as always. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. That was Laurie Johnson. Make sure you give him a follow. Make sure you subscribe into his Substack. Great guy, great person. Like this video. Comment on this video. Share this video. Put it in the main section. Comment in the main section. We've got another great guest. He's about to come on. It's Treater Parsi. So don't go away. If anything, promote it. Share it. Let everybody know about it. Like, comment, and share. Subscribe, and have your notifications on. On this channel, go to the bell icon. You click the bell icon. It says all, and then click on all. Make sure